We will call the meeting to order at 5:36. As a reminder, if you're going to make any public comment this evening, that you will use the superintendent at stgrsd.org email address to submit your public comment. Okay, so in your packet, you should have received a secretary's report dated 6/18/2020. We'll entertain a motion to accept those meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to accept the meeting minutes. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And Jeff is a yes. Warrants were emailed out earlier. Please sign them and return them to the main office via email. And we have a few correspondence.
Sure. The first one, we all received an email regarding an incident that happened at the community track that we take care of at the regional school grounds. I just wanted to let you know that we did handle the situation. We do follow the same routine. I just want to let you know that if during the school day, when we are on the school grounds and when we are available, I think almost all members of central office, we do go out there. If we see groups, we've had CrossFit groups using weights on our track. We've had to go out and speak to them about the use of the weights and the damage they can cause on the track material. And in fact, even just dropping the weights on our soccer field can make divots in the grass, and our students can trip on them, and they cause safety issues. I know when you read these things, it was an unfortunate incident, but our supervising of building and grounds takes great pride in our facilities and really works hard on maintaining, especially the track and the material that it's made out of. We have to abide and take special care when using the track. We've had incidents over the years of different things, and one of them is that we do sometimes have the baby strollers on there, and I know it sounds like a minor issue on the outset, but what happens is when the wheels can create like divots and like little groove in the track, and that can cause tripping and it can cause a hazard. So I know that Mr. Presna will be weighing in, but I want to assure you that we do try and talk to people first. We don't just immediately call police when an incident like this happens, and it was unfortunate. We by no means asked for 3 police cars to show up, but our police department is very supportive, and usually if something happens on school grounds, they do come and help support us. So I will let Mr. Presnall continue.
Sure. The track was constructed back in 2014, and this was after years of dealing with an old cinder track. We actually had only a handful of other high schools that were willing to come to our facility to compete because the track that we had at the time was in such disrepair. A very generous alumnus of the school district and successful business person donated in excess of $500,000 toward the construction of the track. We also had a large contribution from the Community Preservation Committee, which those were the 2 largest revenue sources to make the track facility, to create the track facility that we have now. So it was completed in 2014. At that time, the guidance we received from the designer, John Amato, JA Sports, was that we should not permit wheeled equipment, devices on the track, that it has a detrimental effect on the track, can cause more damage, that the use of the track should be limited to walking and running, and even proper footwear should be worn. So no spikes, no high heels, things like that. The cost to replace this track, and these surfaces must be replaced, and you can get anywhere from 10 to 20 years out of these surfaces, depending on how well the track is maintained. So the cost to replace the surface we have, you're looking at in excess of $500,000 in today's dollars. So where that might be a few years from now, probably even more. So we do go to great lengths to try to protect the track. When we observe, let me back up a little bit. Almost immediately, once the track facility became open to the public, and that was one of our commitments in this, that the public would be permitted to use the track, but it does require proper use. So immediately we saw bicycles, rollerblades on the track. We had to confront those users, post signage. Sometime thereafter, we started to see baby strollers on the track. We sought guidance on that. We were told at that time that even those devices, that equipment should not be on the track. So we wound up posting a sign, and you'll see it's a separate sign for baby strollers because that was the guidance we received. And over the years, we've had folks defy the signage, the posted rules, and use the track with, either a bike or a baby stroller. And when we're aware of it, we respond. Either the facility's grounds people, Mr. Wykander, even myself on occasion have witnessed this stuff and responded and asked the parties to stay off with that equipment. And Superintendent Willard is correct. We've had, I observed at one time, individuals out there with Olympic barbell sets dropping weights from shoulder height onto the track surface. We've had medicine balls, dumbbells, all kinds of gear out there. And when we're aware of it, when we observe it, we respond and ask that it be removed. I've had to threaten folks with calls to the police to get them to comply, because in some cases, the folks who are using the track in this way are defiant. In this particular case, I had advised Mr. Wykander, because he had reported to me that there was a party that had used the strollers on the track, and he was not getting compliance. There was repeated offenses. And I said, well, the next time it happens, I mean, you can't get into a heated argument, just contact the police. We asked for an officer to respond, to speak with the individual who was using the stroller at the facility, and for whatever reason, 3 patrol cars showed up at the scene, and it became a bigger issue than was ever intended. So we have tried to be consistent with limiting the use of the track to just the intended purposes, which is walking and running. And we'll continue to do that in the interest of our students, our student athletes, the members of the community, and the folks who invested in this marvelous resource that we have, which is truly a thing to behold when you compare it to what we had just 6 years ago.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, Superintendent Willard, I think there's a second item.
Yes, so just today, at 3:08 p.m., we got some really great news from the NEASC that their 5-year report has been accepted, and they wanted to pleased to learn of some of the following. The integration of the parent and student viewpoints into the pre-review of the core values and the benefits following the change of the grade level configuration. The integration of 21st century learning expectations into lessons that are supported by academic coaches. They are the support provided for reviewing and revising the curriculum and instruction provided by the curriculum coaches. The training for and implementation of understanding by design, how we build our curriculum units. The implementation of curriculum embedded performance assessments, the use of data protocols by teachers, restructuring of roles that's led to a greater focus and more time spent on instructional leadership, the integration of technology into the curriculum, the professional development provided on depth of knowledge questioning, and it goes on and on. I will have Amy send a copy of the NEASC commendation report. And just to let you know that we're scheduled for 2025 for the next decennial accreditation visit, but they have bumped it up to 226. So the school's next accreditation cycle will begin in the fall of 2023, but the decennial accreditation visit is scheduled for the calendar year 2026, which that date reflects a postponement of 1 year from the previous decennial cycle. So that was some good news that we got at 3:08 today that I just wanted to share with the school committee.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public comment. Can you check the inbox?
Chairman Houle, I have no public comments in the inbox.
We will move on to student advisory. We do not have a student advisory report tonight. Educational presentations. First, we have Jenny Sullivan.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. So I wanted to share with you, I had held some feedback forums for teachers, parents, and students where I held a Zoom webinar similar to this one. We had pretty good participation, got a lot of great information from it. Some of the ways that participants were able to give feedback is I had some live polls that they could participate in. There was a question and answer feed where they could type in questions and I answered them live. I also used an online interactive presentation tool called Mentimeter where they could kind of free form type, paragraph length responses to questions or to just share their general feelings. And then I also shared a post webinar exit ticket where if they had anything that they had hoped would come up or they'd hoped they'd be able to share, that they could share with me. It's very open-ended, so they could really share whatever they wanted to. And so I have, with the help of the instructional coaches, spent time going through all of that data that we gathered, and would like to share with you some of our lessons learned and opportunities for improvement. Overall, I'll say everybody's worried about safety. Everyone wants technology training. Everyone wants clear expectations and accountability for next year. And everyone is hoping that if we do find ourselves in a situation where we need to be remote at any point during next school year, that it is much more standardized and more robust than what we experienced in the spring. So first I met with teachers and paraprofessionals. I had 38 registrants in the grades 7 through 12 and 77 in pre-K through 6. It was a mix of teachers and paras. And in general, when asked what they felt went well, they felt like they still had a good connection with their colleagues. Many of them met weekly with their individual grade level or content area teams and with guidance. In 7 through 12, some teachers reported that they had some success with pre-recording lessons, that they had more participation when they did that and students could access them at their leisure. I got some positive feedback on the use of Microsoft Teams as an organizational tool for students in 7 through 12. And for those teachers that were really trying to actively engage students in live lessons, they were utilizing their paraprofessionals to help them run small groups during those synchronous learning experiences. And those teachers that did that and the paraprofessionals that participated felt like that was a really a positive experience. Some things that we'll want to take into consideration when we're planning for any possible remote learning experiences for the fall is that student engagement was a real problem. Students in 7 through 12, the teachers felt that they were not held accountable to participate, and so many of them chose to do other things, take jobs. Some of them had family obligations, but they just, because there was no accountability or expectation that they would participate, the students didn't. In younger grades, there was also a decrease in participation because their participation depended largely on parents, and so the access was inequitable. Those that had parents, those young students that had parents that had the time to help them engage with their peers and what their teachers did. But one of the things that we'll get to when we get to the parent response is that many people were also trying to work from home during this time, and it was very difficult to try to be a facilitator of learning activities for our most dependent learners that can't sort of self-direct. The paraprofessionals, there were, there was one of the themes you'll hear tonight is there's quite a variation in how teachers interacted with students. Some did the bare minimum, some went above and beyond. And for those that didn't engage students in live teaching, those paraprofessionals aligned with those teachers didn't have much to do. And I think that we can do a much better job capitalizing on their skills and their help during the synchronous learning if we ever do go remote again. And again, teachers were hoping that they can get technology training so that they can better use some of the tools that became available to them, such as the Zoom, such as Teams, so that they can provide a more positive experience. So next slide, please. So I met with parents and families next. It was a very big turnout. We had 183 families register. We actually upped our Zoom accounts to account for more families so that no one got left out. Some of the things, again, is that it was very mixed experiences. Those who had teachers that spent a lot of time providing synchronous learning, that means learning in real time, so they get them on Teams or Zoom and they lead live lessons, had very positive experiences. They really liked the use in the younger grades of an application called Flipgrid to help share their work. And they appreciated for the younger kids that iReady and Lexia was something that they could kind of set them to do independently, and that they felt that that was beneficial and easy to use. Many of our families said that they had really positive teacher interaction, that there was a lot of communication and they felt really in the know, others not so much. And they appreciated there being some flexibility of when assignments could be done, because as I said many times, parents and families were working from home and really just trying to do it all, be teachers, be parents, and complete the responsibilities of their job. And it was very difficult for a lot of families. So things that we'll want to think about as we plan for the fall is that we want to make sure that we're giving some more clear directive to teachers around how much direct instruction and interaction is expected throughout the course of a school day in the event that we're remote. The expectation should be set that these are considered to be full days of school with graded assignments if we're remote or hybrid, so that the teachers and the students are aware that this is something that's expected of them, and that there's no gray areas there where people think they can disengage. And another thing that families, particularly in the younger grades, but on the upper grades as well, that if you have even a high school student, if you've got 4 or 5 different teachers and everyone's using some different technology tool that they found online that they like, it was hard to keep track. So we're looking to to standardize to some degree some of the technology tools that we call on parents and students to use. And another thing that parents struggled with was that sometimes even if the schools did give devices, they were trying to share 1 or 2 devices between multiple children, and that was difficult. And I will tell you that we are accelerating our one-to-one initiative, and we hope to have all students in grades 3 through 12 minimally one-to-one device. We hope to have that in place for the fall. We've run into some supply chain issues, and so we'll get that to students as soon, close to the beginning of the year as possible, but there may be a lag of a few weeks. But we are committed to providing laptops and hotspots for people that have spotty internet access. We definitely plan to take those things into consideration and remediate that in the fall. And again, parents and families also expressed a desire to participate in any technology training that the district could offer to them so that they could better understand how to use the different applications and to use Microsoft Teams. The last group that I met with was students, and we had 85 students register, but then we only ended up getting about 25 in attendance. Most of them were high school students, but I have to say I was very impressed. They were extremely thoughtful participants. And, you know, we don't hear from them enough when we're making decisions like this, and it impacts them the most directly. And they are probably the best group to be able to tell us what works for them and what doesn't, and what was different between what they've been used to experiencing being in school as we know it and what they experienced in the spring, and what things they want to make sure we bring back and things that they didn't have so much success with. Some of the positives, some of the students said that they really liked being able to work independently, that there was flexibility of due dates. Several students said it was very peaceful, not having to deal with you know, some of the drama that tends to happen at the high school level. They could just focus on their studies. A couple of the younger kids that participated said that they also enjoyed the Lexia and the iReady. That was pretty straightforward, easy to sign on, and the flexibility in the schedule was a positive. But you know, they have worries too, our students, and some of them are worries that you know, we would expect them to have, like, you know, being separated from friends and teachers and wondering if there's going to be school dances and field trips and things like that. But some of the worries that they shared were, you know, really big worries about what this disruption in their learning was going to do to their ability to be ready for the next grade in high school and ultimately be ready for college and then be able to get jobs. So there's a lot of worries that they're having, and we want to make sure that we're prepared to help them work through some of those things. Robin Gunn will talk a little bit about that next. But they did say it was hard for them to motivate themselves and avoid distractions. And parents also said it was hard to get, you know, some of their older students to do things. You know, the teachers have good relationships and they're able to prod them to do things, even if they're reluctant. But parents were having a harder time with that, as I can only imagine, having just tried to get my own kids to do summer reading and summer math for over the years. So there was a lack of consistency with the communication with teachers, with, like I said, some students saying that their teachers were there for them, and others saying, you know, what do I do if I email a teacher and they never get back to me? Like, who can I go to if no one responds? So that was a little disheartening. But again, you know, we have to remember that in the spring we were dealing with a pandemic management, right? We weren't prepared. We hadn't trained anybody. Teachers themselves were dealing with their own issues. So now we have an opportunity to sort of regroup and think about what went well and what did not, and do a better job should we be required to do remote at any point next year. Next slide. So in each session, I did a question and answer session where I answered as many of the questions that came into the chat as I could live. But there were also many parents that emailed me via the superintendent email with questions that I never had a chance to get to. And there were a lot of questions that came in that I just didn't have time to get to. So I will let you know that there will be a full list of questions with answers to be posted on our website. And that'll also be questions that I did have a chance to answer live, so that people that didn't have an opportunity to participate in the webinar can still have the answers to their questions. And I encourage anyone who wants to give me feedback or has a specific question that isn't answered in the frequently asked questions, you can call me. My contact information is on the website, or you could email me. I'm always happy to take a call. I spoke to several parents directly on the phone today, and I always get good insights. So I just thought I'd take a couple, I hope I'm not going over time here, that came up a lot that I just wanted to maybe address super quick. Families have been wondering if, with all the uncertainty with the spikes in cases in other parts of the country, if we do come back to school in the fall, if they will have a choice to continue to remote learning, or if they will have to homeschool. And the answer to that is you will not have to homeschool unless you should choose to. There is a difference. If you choose to continue with remote learning, then the district will provide the curriculum and the instruction remotely so that your child can continue to learn, but just from the safety of your home. If you choose to homeschool, that's a completely separate policy that involves you withdrawing your students from the district, and then it's on the families to present to the superintendent what your curriculum is going to be and have it approved. And that has to happen by August 15th. So yes, you will have a choice to continue with remote learning, but I also wanted to point out that that is different from homeschooling, because I think some parents were using that term interchangeably. Some parents are worried that, well, if I make a decision based on information in August and then things changed, am I stuck with whatever I decided at the beginning of the year? And the answer to that is no. You can change your mind. We will work with you to meet your child's need wherever they are. So if you're hesitant at the beginning of the year, but then decide, it's been going pretty well, I want to send them to school, we'll work with you to make that happen. Some parents were really concerned. They're picturing their kids kind of trapped at a desk all day with a mask on, and just didn't feel like that was a good way to spend a day. And they were wondering if there was going to be movement breaks and physical activity. And I will tell you, yes, the principals, and especially in combination with PE teachers, are being very creative. We're very lucky that we have a lot of outdoor space on our campus that we can safely social distance and still get some sort of physical activity worked in throughout the day. The mask question has come up a lot for parents as well. We do have a call out to Tammy Spencer from the Southwick Department of Public Health around when masks can be taken off safely and how and for how long. So we are working on that. A lot of parents really concerned about the heat and having to have masks on the second floor at Powder Mill. I will tell you that Mrs. Carrier has worked really hard to find alternate spaces. So no student will be on the second floor, at least for the beginning of the year, possibly for the whole year. I don't know what her thinking is on that, but we will not put any students on that second floor in the first few weeks of school when it's hot. She has found other spaces. A lot of concern around training of teachers on everything new that they're having to learn. I'm feeling that anxiety as well, being the person that's responsible for setting up PD for the teachers for the year. But I will tell you that we do have 2.5 days at the beginning of the year. Anything else that we had planned, we have canceled, and we are dedicating that time to technology, safety protocols, remote learning, social emotional supports for our students. And we are sort of hoping that the state has teased that they may give us some extra days. So we're still waiting to hear about that. But we also have our instructional coaches that provide job embedded instruction to teachers, or job embedded professional learning. And we will definitely be support throughout the year from our coaches in anything that the teachers are trying out new for the first time. And to reiterate that if we do have to enter into remote learning, it will not be the crisis response manner in which we did it in the spring. It will be much more rigorous, and it will more closely resemble a full day of school. And we will put together, we've been working with our union, and then soon we'll be drawing in parents and teachers to come up with some consistent expectations for best practices that have emerged in remote learning. And we will set some parameters around what we expect them to do to make that as engaging and as rigorous as we can. And that's all I have for you today.
Anyone have any questions or Mrs. Sullivan?
I just want to thank you, Jenny, for holding those listening sessions and for clearly taking everybody's feedback and putting them together for us. I really appreciate you taking the time to do it, but also obviously listening to what was said.
Thank you, Pam. Yeah, I should do it more often. I learned a lot, so definitely try to do that more often.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your presentation, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Director of Student Services, Robin Gunn.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about plans for, as Jenny alluded to, the social emotional needs of our students as they come back. Jenny and I met with Alex Hirschberg, our consultant from James Levine, and we came up with some ideas, and he helped us understand what's happening at the other schools based on his conversations with the principals. Next slide, Amy. Thanks. So you may be familiar with the diagram on the left. This is the what DESE is using. It's the MTSS multi-tiered system of support model. In my opinion, it is a fantastic illustration of what needs to happen in our schools. Jenny and I met with Alex, and our overall goal is to determine proactive steps to support the social emotional needs of our students at all grade levels. And I included this quote from Russell Johnston on the guidance on fall 2020 special education services, because I think it's really, it will be a critical issue, not just for students with special needs. But it reads, under the current circumstances, schools and districts should utilize disciplinary action as a last resort for students with disabilities exhibiting behavioral challenges. And I, again, would argue that that is not just true for students with disabilities, that all of our students are going to have faced trauma and challenges that we may not know anything about. And so that it's really important that discipline not be the first response. Next one, Amy. So one of the things, the most important things that Jenny and Alex and I talked about were, and the focus of the MTSS tiers is these three tiers. And you'll see, and this language comes from the MTSS blueprint. Tier 1, these are supports available to all students through a general education program. And so I just gave some examples of things that are already happening, things that we will do in the future. The idea is to review the skills during morning announcements or meetings, depending on the grade level. The CARES and UROC tickets are things that are already being used at Woodland and at Powder Mill. The use of common language, I think, is really important. And the other piece that I just wanted to focus on was the individual fidget bags that, you know, we talked about in terms of, you know, there could be word searches, journals, a fidget tool. Our kids aren't going to be able to get up and move the way they have been able to in the past. And so we really need to provide them with, obviously, things that they can use at their desk that only they are touching. And so again, this is a first pass at some ideas for some tier 1 supports. Tier 2 supports are generally done in small groups and include additional opportunities to practice the skills necessary for core instruction or strategies for enrichment. So all of the tier 1 tools are in play, and then there are some other things, including GoZen, which is a program that our adjustment counselors asked for that Alex recommended, really focuses on helping kids manage anxiety, works on resilience. Michelle and Jeannie really felt that it was imperative that they have a tool like this. It will also be used at Powder Mill. I wanted to make the point that these are small group sessions that can happen in or out of the general education classroom. depending on the topic that's being discussed. The tier 3 supports are more intensive. As it says, these are often explicit, focused interventions that occur individually or in very small groups. I'd like to emphasize this point. It is important to note that tier 3 is not synonymous with special education. Students with disabilities may not need tier 3 support, and students not identified with a disability may in fact need tier 3 supports. What I appreciate, Amy, could you go back one slide? What I appreciate most about this model, and I hope you can see, on the picture of the whole school, the pink arrows are going both ways. So a child who needs a tier 2 intervention is not necessarily going to stay there, is not necessarily going to progress to tier 3. The idea is that we give the maximum support that we can to all of our kids at tier 1. If they need to move up, we give them what they need and hope that they can come back. Thanks, Amy. You can go to the next slide. So as an example or a description of a tier 3 intervention is, again, everything that was true in 1 and 2, and then individualized instruction guided by adjustment counselors and the student's needs. Next slide, Amy, thanks. One thing I wanted to illustrate for you is our plans for outreach. And Jenny and I discussed this with Alex, and the idea is we're going to start, we want to know ahead of time as much as we can what our students need. And so the principals have been asked to identify students who were not engaged during remote learning and or about whom a teacher expressed concern of any kind, whether it's academic, behavioral, safety, anything that they were worried about. And I know that the principals kept track of that over the course of the remote learning. The people for whom, the students for whom concern was expressed in the spring, as you can see from the left-hand side of the flow chart, they are going to get a phone call from an adjustment counselor or a teacher to complete a screener that I didn't want to bore you with. We need to choose one that Alex suggested, but they're quite comprehensive and get to what are the areas of concern, what has the child been struggling with, what do we need to do, what kind of supports can we put into place. So that first group, we're not waiting for information. We are going to use the information that we gathered over the spring and get in touch with those parents. They will then do a screener over the phone. If that's okay. I think my preference would be over the phone because it's a lengthy document. And I don't want anyone to be overwhelmed by its length. The results of the screen would then be reviewed by the parents and the adjustment counselors or other staff, and then individual action steps will be established and shared with the grade level teachers. Everyone else will receive a letter from their building principal with information on whom to contact if they are concerned about their child. And Alex gave us great language in terms of what parents can look for. You know, it's has your child withdrawn? Or do they seem depressed? Are they sleeping a lot? If on the right-hand side, if a parent expresses concern and contacts someone at the school, they will get a phone call. The screener will be done over the phone, and then we proceed to the last piece. If the parent doesn't respond or says that all is well, teachers will get that information about people from whom we didn't hear, or if the parent said everything was okay, and those kids will just be monitored, because as well as they might be doing now, it might be the vacation part of things. When we first come back, they'll be super excited, but then a few weeks later they might struggle. So I think we are all in agreement and have talked a lot about if our kids don't feel safe, they can't learn. And so addressing these concerns and trying to get out in front of them is really important to all of us. That's it from me.
Anybody have any questions for Mrs. Gunn?
I'm just so thankful with that with all of the guidelines and numbers and feasibility things that we're concerned about, that we still have our social, emotional, and just general well-being of our students right up in the forefront. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I did want to add, I'm sorry, I forgot. I will be doing offering forums similar to what Jenny did next week on the 29th and the 30th for parents of students or the students with special needs. They'll be separated. I will do 7 through 12 one night, and then pre-K through 2 and 3 through 6 as 2 separate groups on the second night. So I just wanted you to know, and others to know, we'll send out invitations.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you, Robin. Way to jump in with both feet. You're jumping on board at a really difficult time, and we really appreciate your energy and enthusiasm, and we need somebody like you in this position. So thank you.
Thanks, Pam. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Gunn. And we're going to move on to the last presentation, which is from Superintendent Willard.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Sometimes my computer goes in and out. I just wanted to start with, I know everybody's wondering what school is going to look like next year. I'm going to start with what we built our plans around, which was our guiding principles. When we first started doing this, it was extremely overwhelming. We were getting lots of information on a daily basis, some of it changing from week to week. And so in order to put our plan together, we really had to go back to our core values and what we stand for as a school district and what we know to be best practices in education. So as we sat down and looked at our plans, the most important thing, and I've said it since the day you hired me, was that I need to ensure that our staff and students feel safe. And Robin Gunn just mentioned it there. If you don't feel safe, then you cannot learn. And so the most important thing we looked at was what the science says out there, what the data says. And we really need to put 6 feet between our chairs of our students. We know that it's best practiced. We know that at restaurants, people are sitting 6 feet apart. We know that no matter where we go, we are hearing social distancing of 6 feet. And until there is definite data out there that says that we only need to be 3 feet, we are going to start with 6 feet between the chairs of our students in our classrooms. And we also need to implement mask wearing in grades 2 through 12. That's the second part, along with hygiene and staying home if you're sick, as part of what we can do to keep our staff and students safe upon their return. Masks are for grades 2 through 12 for all students and staff, and we encourage them in grades K and 1. However, all students who do ride the bus, I just want to let you know, must wear a mask to ride the school bus, no matter what grade they're in. Then second part was we wanted to create a plan that has our most dependent students in person as much as possible. We know that the younger the students, the more the dependent they are, the more support they need. And we know it's really difficult for parents, especially parents who are trying to work from home, to work with their younger kids on school. So our plan was really centered around the belief that we need to have our younger students in as much as possible. And we also know that our students who are on an IEP, who learn differently, and when English is their second language, we need to have them in their schools as much as we possibly can. We also had to create a plan that meets certain remote learning requirements. So if we're looking at doing a hybrid plan, if we can't get all our students in, what are the things that we had to make sure that are going to be part of our remote learning plan? As Ms. Sullivan stated earlier, we were in crisis mode during the pandemic. We were putting together a remote learning plan to the best of our ability. Now we know what best practice is. And from the feedback that we have received from students and from parents and from our teachers, we have to have procedures that all of our students attend the remote learning all day. It is a full day of school, whether they are in school or at home, and we have to send into the state in our remote learning plan how we plan to track attendance and student participation when students are at home remotely. We also need to align our work that we provide in our remote learning to the state standards. It is not enrich and review like we started with last year. It is going to be new curriculum. And we know that we have students who are going to be coming to us that maybe didn't grasp all the content from the year before. But what best practice says is you start teaching the standards, you do a pre-assessment to see where the students are that are in front of you to fill in any gaps you need just at that time, and not what we want to say just in case. So we don't want to take away classroom instruction time that is super valuable just in case they didn't know it. But if they didn't learn it last year, we'll put that scaffold or those supports in place for our students and then move on to the grade level content. Last year it was a pass-fail. It will no longer be pass-fail for remote learning. We are going to be issuing grades for all remote academic work. And we need to, most importantly, have a method, as Ms. Sullivan said too, for teachers and administrators to regularly communicate with the students, parents, and with guardians. So these are the guiding principles that we are basing our plan around. Safety, bringing in our students as much as possible, and when we do create a portion of our hybrid plan that does have remote learning to it, these are the components that we are going to work with our back to school task force to make sure that these are embedded in our plan. So the three types of plans that we have to submit to the state was the in-person learning model, where all of our students come back to full-time and we adhere to all the health and safety requirements that DESE has required. As I said before, the 3 to 6 feet between desks, the mask wearing, the hygiene, and the staying home if you are sick. We did look at this. We did the pressure test. Our goal was to bring all of our students back. Right now, it is not a feasible plan for our school district. It would require over 30 teachers, 30 additional teachers to what we have right now to make the full in-person model work. So currently we are looking at some sort of hybrid learning model. That is the plan that we are currently working on for reopening the school. It's for some grades, as we said, potentially grades K through 3. Those students could potentially be in school 5 days a week. We want to get them in as much as possible. For grades potentially 4 through 8, they may have a hybrid model that has them coming in certain days and doing in-person learning and having a portion of their week be remote learning. So that's what we call the hybrid. For the high school, they may have another model. But what I can assure you is that what we're going to do in kindergarten may not be what we do for 12th graders. We're not doing a one-size-fits-all plan. We're creating plans that meet the needs of the students in that grade. And the last thing we have to create, and this is our default model, is a robust remote learning plan. And this we need to have ready to go because there could be times based on the start-stop protocols where certain students need to quarantine, or a staff member might need to quarantine. A potential school might have to go into quarantine, or if there's numerous cases of COVID in the district where we have to go to a full school closure, district closure. So we have to be prepared for everything. And these are the models that we are working on right now that we are going to be submitting on July 31st to the state. And you also heard Ms. Sullivan mention that at the beginning of the year, you may opt for full remote. You don't want to be part of our in-person or our hybrid model. So we are going to have another plan that is for students who are opting for full remote learning at the beginning of the year. And we will provide the learning platform for our students. Work still needs to be done. School is just a few short weeks away, and there is still a lot of work to be done. So the one thing that we're doing is we are working with our union on the details of the hybrid and the remote plan. We're going to hear the voices of our teachers, hear the voices of our students, hear the voices of our parents at the table as we put the details of these two plans together. We need to plan professional development for staff, as they return to school, on the hygiene protocols, on what it looks like, on how to remove a mask safely, the what to do ifs. So we have a lot of professional development that we need to do that we haven't done in the past, that we still need to create. We're going to be working with our Return to School Task Force on next steps. How are we going to communicate it out to all of our families, to all of our stakeholders? We have to create cohorts based on transportation. We have to potentially look at, do we need to do staggered arrival times and dismissal times? We have to survey our staff to see who will be coming back next year, who may potentially need a leave. And before we can even put our final plans together, after we have finalized what our 3 plans are for the district, we have to survey our families. We need to know, based on this plan, based on these requirements, are you going to be sending your children back to us for in-person or hybrid learning, or are you going to opt for the full remote learning starting in September? Are you going to need transportation? Because if you're going to need transportation, we need to get that information to our transportation department so they can start putting bus runs together. And as I said, we're hoping that we can potentially adjust that school calendar for school opening so that we can provide our staff with additional professional development days before they return to school, so that they are trained with additional technology training, additional protocol training, and other professional development that they feel they need in order to implement the hybrid plan. So I just want to thank everybody for, I was the only feedback session I did not attend was the parent feedback session with Ms. Sullivan due to a family commitment, but I was able to attend both teacher feedback sessions and the student feedback session. Your feedback really helped us guide what we were doing and helped us really solidify what our guiding principles were as we developed the outline of this plan. Now we're going to need us all to work together to put all these details in to make it be a robust plan that is in the best meets the needs of all of our students and really has Southwick, Tallinn, Granville Regional School District stand out from all the other local schools as having one of the best plans out there to meet all of the needs of our students.
Any questions for Superintendent Willard?
So I have one comment and one question. First of all, my comment is a huge thank you for being realistic about this plan and realizing that despite our true desire for full in-person learning, it's just not feasible. You know, obviously being from a family of educators, this is a very frequent topic in my household. And, you know, we've all previously to this night come to the conclusion that hybrid is the best model. No plan is perfect, but, you know, prior to listening to you tonight, I had firm beliefs that hybrid was really the most honest and best way to go about this. And I just want to share with you a little tidbit that I think those of you that have taught my child and can appreciate math would know. But, you know, we asked my kids what they would be most comfortable with for next year without sharing with them our own thoughts. And both of my children said hybrid. And when we asked why, my son Aaron said, well, I would just have 1/4 of the exposure that I would normally in school. And my husband and I looked at him and we said, well, explain what you mean. And he said, well, you know, if I'm going to school on the hybrid plan, then I would really kind of be in school about half the time, but I would only be exposed to about half the kids. So therefore, 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. So I got to say, there's your amazing math right there, guys. So my only question right now is, you know, I think parents' biggest concern with the hybrid model is being able to plan for work and childcare and things like that. And so needing to know kind of what days of the week to anticipate their kids would be in school and when their kids would be at home. So do you know when that information would be available, would be decided, and then would be available to parents?
Sure. So we did talk about how we thought we were doing it. It's probably going to go, believe it or not, by last names alphabetically. It's just the easiest way to break it up. And as of right now, because of transportation purposes, we are thinking that our Granville and Tolland students would be coming on Mondays and Tuesdays. So I don't know if that helps with planning, but I anticipate having a final answer for that in my presentation to the school committee next Tuesday.
Thank you.
But that is tentative right now.
I have a couple of questions here. Some of it actually, I'm looking back through it. I think just some of it just got answered by what Pam asked, especially around the I think the some of the hybrid model stuff. Do we know when the deadline will be for making this decision? In the sense of, if I decide I want to have my kid be full remote learning, we're obviously only a few weeks away. Making all these plans, we have to know pretty soon what people want to do. Do we have a deadline out there of when and how they, how we will, the parents will communicate to the school what their intentions are?
Yes, I have it on my timeline, and I don't have my timeline in front of me. I don't know if Amy McLaughlin can pull it up, but we do have a timeline of what it is going out, and I believe, what is next Tuesday's date? The 20? Next Wednesday, I think we anticipate putting the survey out to parents when I present to the school committee what I believe our plan is going to be. And we are going to ask the parents, based on the information that was presented last night as our return to school plan, that's the best information they're going to have, what option that they would choose. So we anticipate, I believe, it going out, Amy can help me, I think it's next Wednesday with a return date of the following Sunday, so that we can start disaggregating the data on Monday to formalize our plan to see how many teachers we need to hire, see if we have enough teachers teaching remote, because that's right now our plan is built around every student coming back to school. We know that's not going to be the case. So in order to staff appropriately, we do need the information from parents.
Right.
Yeah, so that's
So
about August 1st. August
yeah, that's
2nd
what I just
is
wrote
that
down.
Sunday. So,
Yes. Thanks, Amy.
And so will that be, I'm just curious if we get, if we only get 60% response by then, obviously that's not going to give us a lot of information to go on. I don't know if we're gonna have to make some assumptions on some folks or how we're going to go about reaching out to that group that we maybe don't hear from.
We're
so we
probably
can really
going to reach out to them personally, which is not the best use of our time.
right.
But we do need to know what our family's plans are for the upcoming school year. At least the best guess based with the data that they're given at that time. Should they change their mind, they could always let us know. But we do need to start planning transportation routes, bus routes. We need to start planning how to staff classrooms, how many teachers do we need for in-person learning, how many teachers do we need for remote learning. This all takes a lot of work on our end. So the sooner we get the information from families, the better our plan will be, and we'll be ready to open on the first day of school.
And what kind of technology plans do we have for those folks that decide to, it sounds like to some extent everybody's going to need some technology, and obviously there's going to be some people that have more access to it than others. What does that look like, from a standpoint of if someone, let's say, decides they want to do full-time remote, but they don't have maybe the access to the technology that they need?
Right. So our district will be providing computers for all students, grades 3 through 12. But based on the pandemic and the COVID situation, we were really on top of things. We ordered our computers. I think it was end of May, early June. I know Mr. Presnell was responsible for that, so he can answer better. We had anticipated getting them, we thought, this summer, based on last year's timelines. But due to the overwhelming supply and demand situation, he did receive information. Not sure if it was today or late in the day yesterday, that from Wally Computer, that we may not be getting them until October. That is not ideal. But we're going to do the best we can with what we have, and work, our technology people work as quickly as we can to get computers as they come into the hands of our students.
So Superintendent Willard, if I could jump in on that. We do have a standing meeting every week that involves Mrs. Sullivan, the Director of Technology, Mr. Grimaldi, our instructional technology coach, Mr. Taglieri, and myself, and we go through incredible detail on putting together plans for use of technology in the classroom and for remote learning. This year we did manage to meet, we believe, if not 100%, virtually 100% of the device needs that our students had, where in their home they may not have had a device or may not have had enough devices to take care of all of the students. We have plans that are in place and orders in place, but there are unfortunately some supply chain issues, and the devices that we have on order are not expected to land until late September or early October. At that point in time, there's probably a couple of weeks of preparation to get those devices ready. But we do feel, if the needs are similar to what we had this year, the end of this year, with respect to needs for devices, we feel we can meet those. And we actually have a meeting tomorrow to discuss implementation of that arrangement for the start of the school year, with a rollout of one-to-one devices, an accelerated rollout of one-to-one devices in October, hopefully sooner, but probably in October, for all students in grades 3 through 12.
Okay, great. Going through my litany of items here. As far as reevaluation, I mean, we're fortunate, I think, fingers crossed, that Southwick and surrounding areas right now, Tolland, Granville, that our numbers are pretty low. What do we expect for the reevaluation of these guidelines? And do we say what kind of metrics are we going to be looking at? Are we relying on the state to tell us that this looks like we've come out of this? Or the part I struggle with, I think, the most is we're not, this is not Boston, and we're in a rural community, and hopefully our numbers will continue to stay low. But trying to balance those two things with the mask thing certainly creates a safety aspect, but it also could be a little bit of an inhibitor to learning. So just curious what the reevaluation periods will be like for this. I assume some kind of a phased approach.
Yeah, so right now we're considering the reopening of our school our phase 1. And of course, we're putting this plan together with the best information that we have at the time. We know we're going to do the best we can, but there's going to be kinks in our plan, and we're going to have to work them out. And hopefully by October, we're going to have better data. More schools will have been in session, so they'll have more information on COVID transmission in schools. So as soon as we get updated information, for example, we just got information from the state on Friday about our start and stopping protocols, about what to do if there's a case of COVID detected in the school, and how do we handle it. But it says that's today. This could change with new CDC updates. So things are always flexible. Things are fluid. As we get new information, we can adapt our plan. And that's why it's really important to have a return to school task force, because they're going to be part of looking at new data and re-looking at our plans as time goes on. But the most important thing is to really have a solid plan now that is both hybrid and remote, because we want to move back seamlessly between our hybrid plan and remote learning if there is a spike in COVID cases in our area, and we do have to close a school or a district or even a classroom for 14 days. And we want to be prepared to do that, and we want to make sure that our teachers have the tools they need to teach remotely, and that our students understand the expectations of them at home if we do have to go to a remote plan.
And
But we'll always be looking at things.
if I could add to that, Jen, this is Jenny Sullivan. We start with guidance from the state, but I know that Jen and myself and Robin are also, that's where we start, but then we check in with our Southwick Board of Health to see how they feel about what the state recommends. So we are making sure that we are making decisions about what makes sense for us locally, not just at the state level. That's only where we start, and then we draw the local people in to make sure that they're okay with what we're planning.
Right, and that makes sense. So I assume that obviously the Board of Health on this task force is a part of that, right?
Yeah, she's on part of everything. I think I email her
Okay.
3 to 4 times a day,
Okay.
and that's not a joke.
Yeah, and I appreciate. I mean, we're this is an unbelievable moving target. So you're planning for 5 different things, and we just don't know what, like you said, what tomorrow brings. So I appreciate all the work that all you guys have done, this summer to try to balance the two things here with, we've got obviously a student side of it, we've got a teaching side of it, and we nobody wants anybody to get sick, and I don't fault anybody for the decisions they make about what they want to do or not do. I think the last question that I had, and I think it's just basically still to be determined. I think you've got something here about staff training for how to deal with kids. I'm just thinking of scenarios that could happen. And I assume in what you've got here, there's going to be planning out for that. If a kid refuses to wear a mask, if there's, if the kid loses his mask, her mask, whatever, that sounds like that stuff is still coming and being worked out, right?
Jenny, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. We are planning for the logistical side is going to be more Steve and his team around, purchasing and having PPE, but we will have available extra masks for students. To go back to Robin's presentation around the social emotional learning, we are treating the mask issue as just as other things, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, rather than being just a straight up punishing, trying to educate the student and have them extra time to practice about why it's important and not to, because let's just be honest with each other here, right? The mask situation, it's political. There are cultural implications. There are so many factors that play into why someone would choose to wear or not wear a mask, and our students are not impervious to that. And even just little things like impulse control, like kids sometimes act before they think, and we want to make sure that we're not sort of criminalizing the non-compliance with the safety, but we also want to make sure that they understand that we're doing this to protect our community and to appeal to their sense of community, but of providing time to practice. And we will be providing professional development to the teachers around how to deal with those situations as they arise as part of our back to school professional development. So not only just the protocols around what do we have to do to be safe, but also some best practices and from a trauma-informed perspective of how we deal with some of these non-compliance issues as they arise.
Yeah. And I assume this probably goes without saying because that you guys, I think, have a really good handle on this stuff. But I assume that guidelines will go home to parents about what, how certain things will be enforced or not enforced, or So I guess my point there is so that the parents can have an opportunity to talk to their kids, that we can do the initial triage of saying these are going to be the rules. This is what's going to happen. you know, just a clear, you know, one sheet of this is, if you do these things are going to happen, so that they're not coming into this blind, so we can set their expectations.
That's a great point, and we will definitely make sure that we do that to give you guys enough time to be, you know, talking to your kids about it before they come back.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Piggybacking on what John said about, you know, like doing this in phases and evaluating each phase and making decisions based on current situations. And also what Jenny said about parents being able to change their choices. I think that maybe we might want to consider having like certain sort of like enrollment dates when parents can change their minds. Like, let's say they started remote and now
that's a great point. I've actually got a couple emails from teachers listening in on this about that, thinking logistically how, if a class is already full, how we work about that. So I will tell you that the reason that we took that stance is from direct guidance from the state. They just don't want people to feel locked in. People need to feel comfortable to make choices for themselves and their families based on the best information that they have available to them. But you're right, it's not going to just be like, well, on a Tuesday I'm going to send my kid. There's got to be,
it can't be a rolling admission. There needs
Right,
to be some dates that everybody needs to know in advance. And just like schools reevaluate on a certain time frame, families have to reevaluate for themselves on a certain time frame as well. And we have to have those time frames aligned.
Yeah, I'm thinking like January was a suggestion that Amy and another teacher had recommended, like maybe mid-year, you know, flu season, you know, figure out what's going on with flu season, that maybe January. So we're thinking about it, but we just want to make sure that we provide as much flexibility for parents as possible.
If our students K through 3 are hopefully coming 5 days a week, is there enough room? Are we using up extra rooms to make them fit? Are we bringing in more teachers, or is it feasible to get them all in those 5 days without taking up, or with the same footprint, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, that's what we worked on with the hybrid plan. We can fit all K1 and 2 at Woodland School. Yes, we are using ancillary places in the school, places that were not always classrooms, but we can fit them all in the school. But yes, it does require staff to be reallocated into different positions. But that's because in some classrooms there's class sizes of 10. So class sizes will be small. But we are working creatively. We're putting what we know to be best practice in place of getting our dependent learners in with a teacher as much as possible, and if fitting them all in, we can do it.
Superintendent Willard, if I could just comment quickly on that. This is Mr. Presnall again. The Massachusetts School Building Authority made available, they actually have plans for every school in every district across the state with classroom dimensions, common space dimensions. So they worked with a regional design firm and put together a software application that greatly simplified and fast-tracked the process for pressure testing the enrollment capabilities with social distancing in mind in each of the schools. And that said, we did go beyond that and physically test those spaces. So in many schools, there's a common classroom size that you see repeated throughout the building many times. In other cases, there are obviously some odd-shaped classrooms, and so we had to physically look at those rooms. Once, you know, for the commonly repeated configurations, you know, once you establish it once, you know how it's going to work for the rest of those rooms in the building. For some of the other rooms, we did have to you know, test each one individually, but that work's been done and made a little easier by the MSBA and the tool that they made available to school districts.
Right, and Mr. President, just to reiterate too, the classrooms are not going to feel as warm and fuzzy as they have in the past. We need to, potentially part of what we're going to do is have students come in before school starts to see the space so that they can process it. It's not going to have the rugs. The classrooms are going to look different. They're going to feel different because we need to do that in order to keep everybody safe and in order to clean and sanitize the rooms. So the goal is to get everybody in, but with that said, the classrooms are going to be a bit sparse with desks and wall coverings and that sort of thing, because the classroom's going to have a different feel, and we need to prepare our children for that as well.
Pam's question got me thinking about the open enrollment thing. We also need to be prepared for the other direction too, right? If we have, within the first week, we have all of a sudden a bunch of kids that decide, you know what, or their parents decide they actually don't want them to be going daily, that they want to turn them, go into the remote model. So, there's so many things to plan for, but that just, occurred to me that, obviously that could go the other way too.
We're hoping it doesn't. And I know hope is not a strategy, but we really do feel it's in the best for our dependent learners to be in with a teacher as much as possible, especially in the learn to read grades, in the math foundation grades.
Yep. I mean, I agree with that. I just, just so that we've got an easy way to say, okay, they've made this decision. We can handle it.
Right.
Anyone else have any questions for Superintendent Willard? Okay, thank you for your presentation. We have no policies this evening. Moving on to action items.
Yes. Move to approve the revocable land use license agreement between the town of Southwick and the American Legion, Southwick Post number 338 Inc., with the consent of the Southwick Talon Granville Regional School District for a one-year term commencing in July 1st, 2020 and terminating on June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on this agreement? I believe we've changed it to a one-year agreement
Yes.
at the request of the motocross. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 6-0-0.
Move to approve the severance settlement agreement by and between the Southwick Talon Granville Regional School Committee and the Transit Division United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 1459, recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the agreement? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And Jeff is yes, so the motion passes 6-0-0.
Move to approve home education proposals HS 2021-01 through HS 2021-05, recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the home ed proposals? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And Jeff is yes. Motion passes 6-0-0. Moving on to reports.
So I just want to remind the school committee that we got approval for, although not all of you are immediate family members, we did get approval that our school committee can attend our graduation. that will be this Saturday. And as of right now, we have over 90 of our graduates participating, which is really exciting because one of my fears in postponing graduation was that most of our graduates would come back and participate. So super exciting, really speaks to the dedication of the 2020 class advisors and the class leaders to rally everybody back and to have an in-person graduation, which is super exciting. So I know Principal Trammell will be reaching out to the school committee personally tomorrow. And if you could just let him know if you can attend, we will have a designated seat for you. So great news.
This is kind of probably. I mean, I don't know whether I'll be able to make it or not. But are there restrictions? I assume, on how many family members?
Well, yeah. So it really shouldn't have been more than 5. It was kind of held to immediate family members, people in the immediate family. They worked with it family by family. But as you weren't immediate family members, and that's what the guidance said, we just wanted to make sure that, like I said, I have to clear everything. So yes,
Yeah.
you are, as elected officials, you are invited to graduation. So yes, we would love to have you. I just need to know so that we can, it will all be done via seating charts, and we will have a seat designated for you if you want. This is another logistical where we have to have everybody in a special seat. So
Yeah, it feels a little awkward to
yeah,
go to something, to go to something that maybe somebody's aunt or uncle can't go to, but it's, you can't let, it is what it is.
Anything else, Superintendent Willard?
that is what I have right now, but looking forward to beautiful weather.
Okay, moving on to the Director of Finance and Operations, Mr. Presnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have much to report other than to make you aware, if you're not already aware, that we still don't have a state budget. We don't even have a House Ways and Means version of the state budget. So although our operating budget for FY21 was approved at the local level, there is still reason to approach spending in a cautionary way, simply because we don't know about the underlying revenue sources that are dictated by the state budget process. That said, there have been a number of grants that have been made available, many of them federally funded in the source, but passed through the state, but targeted for certain things, COVID response items, technology. So we are working together as an administration to identify the best uses of those funds. Mrs. Sullivan is spearheading that effort based on the limitations or the purposes of those funds. So that is helping in FY21 with some of the costs that we're facing in a very uncertain budget year based on the challenges that the Commonwealth is seeing around tax collections. And hopefully we start to get some news from the state budget process soon, but I know that the legislature is largely holding back on doing something until they get some direction from the federal government on whether there's additional federal relief coming to the states, which would be available for school districts. So just wanted to make you aware of where we stood with that and how we're approaching our spending with FY21.
Any questions for Mr. Presnell? Okay, moving on to subcommittees and liaisons. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report out at this time?
Just policies, working on meeting in the next week or two, I think.
We do want to pull together the finance subcommittee, looking at some options for next week. So I think we'll be in touch with the current members soon.
Do we have dates for reopening task force meetings?
I would, this is Jenny. I would like to hold something this week or next week. I'm a little overwhelmed about who to invite and how to best use our time. So, but I have to get over that and just pick a date. So you will hopefully hear from me in the next day or two about something coming up in the next week.
Okay, if there are no other subcommittee report outs, we're going to move on to public comment. I would ask Amy to check the folder.
Okay, Chairman Houle, I have 2 emails related to public comment. The first email is from Griffin Perro from Southwick, Mass. And the comment is, I agree that if students don't feel safe, they cannot learn. This needs to be of utmost importance, even when there isn't a pandemic. Thank you. Comment number 2 is from Matt Sikovich of Southwick, Mass. And Matt had a question as his public comment. It says, regarding grades 9 through 12, will high school be going hybrid model? It wasn't clear to me during your presentation. Thank you. And that concludes the emails that I have for public comment.
Moving on to old business. We don't have any old business, so new business. We have two items. First up is a letter from LPVC members to STCC. It's a discussion that we need to have. Pam, if you want to kind of take the lead on this.
Sorry, unmuting myself here. So yes, I received this letter from the Ludlow member of the school committee who sits on LPVEC. And this was a letter that the Ludlow School Committee crafted to Springfield Technical Community College, basically asking them to reinstate some of the programs that they have chosen to eliminate for the fall. And the thinking behind this was that really STCC is the only higher education institution in this area that is providing this kind of technical training. Jake shared this letter with all of the members of the LPVEC and wanted us to discuss it amongst ourselves and decide whether or not we felt similarly and if we wanted to send a similar letter to STCC ourselves. I don't know how you folks feel about it, but I just wanted to make you aware of this communication.
I guess first of all, do folks understand what happened recently with Springfield Technical Community College? They have made some programmatic changes, say as a result of COVID and participation levels. Does anybody have any feelings either way on this?
They're looking to discontinue all of those programs.
I believe it was 7 different programs were cut.
That's insane. That's a lot. And a lot of our students end up going there, right? From our CTech program. Or,
Well, and that was, you know, that was the question, like how many students from CTech, you know, feed these programs. And that was the concern at the LPVEC level. And there are a significant number. So, you know, personally, I can see both sides of this coin. I understand, you know, for they need to be fiscally responsible. I'm sure their budgets are really, really tight. I'm sure their enrollment is down too. And, you know, just like all the rest of us, they've got to cut something. So I do understand that side of it. I also, you know, understand the need to still have these programs available because we are continuing to educate our students. We are continuing to graduate our students, and we do need feeder programs for them.
yeah. I know so many people who've come out of that program. Oh, all of those programs. Wow. So I would support this. I don't know how much it'll do because it is a business, but well.
I'd certainly agree with that.
Okay, I will have Amy draft up a letter, and then we'll take an action item at our next committee meeting, vote on it, and then send it their way.
Okay.
Okay, and then our last item up is, as Jonathan alluded to earlier, this is going to be a very busy summer for the district. And as a result, the school board needs to support some of the things that are going on throughout the summer. This is not our norm. We typically do not meet until the week before September. So with that said, I'm assuming Jen and Amy have a proposed schedule.
Superintendent Willard, I think, is muted, but we had talked about having a meeting.
Sorry.
Do you want to address the meeting schedule?
So we would like to present to you next Tuesday, the school committee, a formal presentation of the proposed plan that we would like to have you vote on for the reopening of school. We have to submit all 3 plans to the state a week from Friday. So we would like you to have an overview of what we are submitting to the state, let you know the plan that we intend to go with. So we might have some more answers on it to some of those questions. And then the following Tuesday, we would like the school committee to vote on our recommended plan.
I guess I would ask if any of the committee members have conflicts on either of those 2 days.
So it's next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, correct?
Yes.
I don't think I have any conflicts.
I'm
Hi,
taking
Sean.
I'm taking a full day seminar next Tuesday, but I'm pretty sure it'll be done in, are we starting at 5 o'clock?
We can.
Yeah, I can be done, but I'm pretty sure it'll be done by 5.
And can you just contact Maria after this too? Make sure she's good.
Yes, I'll follow up with Mrs. Seddon.
It looks like we'll have 2 meetings for the next 2 weeks.
Say I'm good unless I deliver my baby early. Or not even early, just more than a week.
When are you due, Ryan?
August 15th, but I'm going to be induced before then.
Wow.
All right, so it looks like we have consensus that we're good on those dates. Any last opportunity for new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And we got to vote.
I don't know if you called my name, but the answer is yes.
Pam, Chelsea,
Yes.
Ted,
yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Jeff is a yes. You folks have a good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the attendees in the audience. There are lots of you, and it's nice to have so many participants.